Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. It's my pleasure to introduce Guillaume Lapierre, which I've had to pronounce that a little bit to make sure I get Guillaume's name exactly correct. Guillaume and I first met in person in November in Atlanta, which was the first Train the Trainer session that PMI had post the acquisition of Disciplined Agile to give an opportunity for existing Disciplined Agile trainers, as well as those that were coming from a PMI background to see the materials. And I quickly was able to glean that Guillaume has the biggest energy in any room. So that's my tagline for him. And the topic that we're going to cover today is Disciplined Agile for business teams. So situations where it's in non-software development. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can just see Guillaume and I. And yeah, Guillaume, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more and take it away?
Oh, thank you very much for Joshua for the opportunity to be there today. As you can hear, I'm French, right? With the name, it was kind of telling. So yeah, I've been in Agile for for many years. I've been in software development. I've been in many aspects of organizations, and in the last few years, I've been quite lucky to be in Desjardins, which is a big cooperative institution, like a banking institution in Canada, and I'm really lucky to have been given the chance to get with business teams to try to fire up their agile abilities and agile mindset. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to be there today.
Yeah, and the topic is really timely. What we've been covering in the new Disciplined Agile and Scrum Master materials is a preview into some of the new life cycles that we're going to be teaching on. And there is a sneak preview for those of you that are members of the Disciplined Agile Consortium that you can see there is an Agile business team project lifecycle. There is a business service team lifecycle, and then lean business team project lifecycle. And when Guillaume and I were talking about the topic, we both were fortunate in that we've worked with organizations that have actually used an agile way of working for non-software development. And it's becoming a pretty good topic. We're seeing more people that are coming through our training workshops that actually are from more of a business background and looking to explore both agile and lean principles and the life cycles that discipline offers.
Yeah. And in that, it's I think it's a big advantage of Disciplined Agile to provide a goal-driven approach in helping people and teams and organization into their process decision, uh,
Yeah.
uh, with that toolkit that really includes a lot of strategies and practice that help us to just succeed and try to succeed earlier while trying to capturing those strategies according to our context, which is really important, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Some of the situations, and I'll let Guillaume cover one of the ones that you're currently working with. But what I'll also chime in on is I've worked with areas in the organization that are normally considered more at that enterprise level, the supporting level, and with large scale organizational transformations to an agile way of working. Normally, if you're part of a agile COE and you've got more experience from a coaching perspective, you're normally one of the roles that gets involved with legal and procurement and vendor management and sometimes HR very early on because they need to be in a position to support those early adopters that you're trying to learn some lessons on before you get a lot of coverage that expands across an organization. And one of the organizations I worked with, the procurement area and the point of contact that was involved in supporting some of these early teams, realized that they wanted to take an agile way of working when they had to redo a lot of the work for moving forward with engaging with vendors and putting out RFIs, RFPs, how they're going to down select vendors, do the proposal, then working with legal and finance from a funding and a contract vehicle perspective, and how they used an agile way of working to do that. Another one is on more of the infrastructure types of groups. I've got an organization that I'm working with, and we're going to be taking an agile way of working for a laptop refresh, which is going to be somewhere between 15 to 20,000 laptops that are going to be put out by the end of this year, and they're going to take an agile way of working. But before I get into those examples myself, Guillaume, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what you're currently doing.
Oh, currently, yes. So from a couple weeks since, sorry about that, I'm French, right? So for the last like 3-4 weeks, I joined a nice area of Desjardins organization, which are responsible for every customer relationship center. And you know, it's every services that Desjardins provides using telephone, and really talking to the frontline talent people and how we can organize value generation across those value stream instead of having more of a project thinking, you know, around that. So you know, one of the condition of success was having a clear vision, clear mission with leaders and smart objective around that. But even in that, you know, when you organize people on long-standing teams, treating some areas or some topics, some subject, and all aligning together to generate a massive impact on the organization and on the frontline talent people. It's really amazing how you can involve an agile way of working and really overlook all the options that are available for people in the way that they will generate and create the value and align the people together.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's great that we're seeing so many more people that are interested in looking at Agile again that are outside of software development, and that's one of the things that's always been a strong suit of DA, because we've had guidance within it, and we've had opportunities with large organizations to do this exact thing.
Yeah.
Another, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And when you talk about those specialty that we have in many organizations, as legal, as marketing expert, as you know, strategist, that they need to be aligned together. They can be seen as really specific roles that can be treated, you know, on the same way that IT people could oversee a database administrator. You know, those roles are so pointy that they are unique. Every role, every people, every team are unique, and they need to align together to really generate that traction across the value generation.
Yeah, yeah. Another example I've got with an organization I'm just starting to work with is somebody from HR. So I delivered some training. One of the things we talk about from a lean perspective is to stop starting work and start finishing work. And that resonated very well with them. And so they reached out and said, I've been working on a revised onboarding process, which not only is the process, there's lots of documents and so forth that go along with that. And I just seem to be, you know, struggling with going on and on and on because I have all this unplanned work and I don't know how to really take a look at the amount of time I can spend. So we are in the process of, you know, setting up a very simple Kanban board, and we have identified the beginnings of a backlog of all the things that are kind of known right now that they're going to need to do. And then we've chunked it up for, you know, the first 2-week period, and we're seeing how that's going. And we've got a lot of capacity that is unreserved because there's a lot of things that are constantly coming up, but we're trying to see how much work can actually get committed to be doing and actually seeing that that gets done, because they just haven't been able to make as much progress as they'd like. And so another use of an agile way of working
Yeah.
in non-software development that I think once we see some progress there is what I'm going to expect. More of the projects in HR and some of the other areas in the organization are very interested to do the same.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, those are expertise that that needs to stand together and overview, have a clear overview and visualize the work, you know, to identify maybe that some roles that is misunderstood within the team as really a huge amount of work versus maybe the rest of the team. And as I'm teaching people in or disciplined agile training, or even while I'm coaching, is to as you said, start finishing instead of starting. Stop starting and start finishing. You know, so once one item is getting to the end, that's only there that the value is truly generated, and not having, you know, big queues all along the process where, you know, people keep busy, but at the end of the day, do we see any progress? So that's kind of the thing that you notice in a lot of huge organization across the world is once you start with that early year strategy, sometimes you have a lot of teams that are trying to deliver that value in the last 2 months of the years. So there is a huge impact on the sales channel. There's a huge impact on a lot of division within the organization. And this needs to be, you know, to be aligned together to generate the flow that we need to really capitalize on the investment that we are doing across the year.
Yeah, and we've got a question from Claudia. How do you deal with life cycles in non-IT projects? I have the feeling that the implementation phase does not apply. And I'll give a little bit of context here, and then Guillaume, I'll turn it over to you. And I'm going to go back to this area, this organization that I worked with, that we did this in the procurement area. So Claudia, what we did was we actually used the Agile life cycle, again, from a non-software development perspective. There is a new version of that in Disciplined Agile, which is the Agile Business Team Project Lifecycle. But it has Inception, it's got Construction, and it's got Transition. And so what we did in Inception is we did what we would do in any other project. We did some upfront planning. We took a look at some dependency management. We came up with the equivalent of a release plan. We had to forecast how many 2-week time boxes we were going to need to accomplish what they needed to get done. And we had a date in mind because this was being driven by a product that a large product that was going to be replatformed, and a bunch of other smaller products that were going to be aggregated all together. So this was all going on to a new technology platform. It was some analysis of what functionality really needed to be moved over, right? Because there's a lot of times there's stuff that just hasn't been used for a while. So what we identified was the RFI that needed to go out, the RFP, how to weight and rank the proposal, the proposals that were coming in, the process for down selecting. And we then took a look from a sequencing perspective as well as a prioritization perspective. And that's how we broke it down into 2-week periods, because there were things that legal needed to get involved with before we could engage finance. And there were things that finance needed to get involved with before we could then loop back in from a legal and a vendor management perspective. So very similar to how a product owner in a project or just a new initiative that is going to be taking an agile way of working to write code or configure a package application. We were doing the same thing, but the output was the actual work products that were becoming the templates for being able to put the RFI or the RFP out, into the world for the list of vendors that they had already pre-qualified. So, yeah, the implementation phase and all that, we moved directly over to essentially the agile life cycle to be able to do that. Definitely some of the lessons learned, which we would see on any other type of project, right? Where we've got the interaction and the capacity, we got agreement from people, again, I'll say like legal, procurement, vendor management, enterprise architecture, and we needed those in very specific time periods like we would on a software development project, and we didn't always get that. So those were impediments, right? Those were being raised to leadership to say, this is what we agreed to do. This is the time period we need somebody. We don't need 8 hours of somebody's, on the last Friday of the month. We might need 1 or 2 hours during each one of those weeks. So that was how we approached doing that quantity of work.
Yeah. And even on that, when you're talking about implementation phase, you can be in a marketing context where you have to release that campaign even to maybe segments or countries, or to those kind of customers or others, and what are the real goals that there is? Are you production ready? Are you ready to deploy this? And
Yeah.
then how will you deploy it? Do you have a strategy around that? And have you thought of those decision points that are included across that, even if it's non-IT? I agree, but
Yeah.
it needs to be answered in our team as we
Yeah.
release it.
And that was a great point you made as far as the initial work we were doing in this example I was just covering was for the vendors that would actually be doing the development of the replatforming. But there was also a hardware component that was going out for a competitive bid as well. And so that was the next smaller quantity of work that we were working on because that wasn't part of what was needed to get the RFI and the RFP out. And we have another question from John. Hi, Guillaume. How well do the business organizations you work with accept that it's more important to manage flow than it is to manage utilization of productivity? Has it been a hard sell? What techniques have you used? How did you enlighten the businesses? And often they weren't focused on the right thing. Enlightening, I see that, enlightening the business that they aren't always focused on the right thing.
Yeah, DA teach us to be goal driven. So across that, what we want to do is really focus on delighting the customers. So how much value is really getting out of the door, not really getting stuck in the process. So how can we just organize people as in taking in account their capacity to focus on one thing? So Disciplined Agile is also based on lean. And in the lean, what you want to do is really try to minimize the number of items and work in progress. So lower your WIP on whenever you can, and try to think of the flow. So I know it's been really hard, talking about it, and it's really not one anywhere. So it's always a work in progress, as it is a journey. But once you focus on those goals together that you set up as teams and as executive around that, and with the C levels, and they all align, and then you go to short experimentation, so short iteration, so trying to target some goals across a smaller period of time. So this way, it really shows the generated value, and that way we can then have the ability to pivot and see, are we going the right direction or not? And once you do that and you really generate that success story around there, those sponsors really start to be sponsoring the success of that across the rest of the organization. And and they're getting installed is that competition, that same competition between those division, those managers and leaders of the organization. So this way there's a faster kind of adoption of those techniques.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that I often use in training, and it's something that I do in a physical location when I'm doing the foundations of lean, but it's also something that I've done with leadership team members, specifically on this question that relates to flow versus high utilization of resources. And it's a game that uses ping pong balls. So there's also, when we're doing this in a virtual live setting, there's a great YouTube video from Henrik Kluberg, and I probably am not pronouncing his name. Yes. And it works so well. And I've got some ping pong balls that have like nice little funny, emojis on them. And I've used this with leadership team members as well to demonstrate that high utilization oftentimes has a very low flow rate, and how we want to see a natural flow that any given team is going to arrive at, and we see really good throughput. But it's an exercise that you can do in 10-15 minutes with some discussion to really start driving home how really high utilization oftentimes gets to where, like, we're on a really crowded highway, right? It's a traffic jam. And, you know, the more cars that we're putting onto a given, you know, mile of interstate, at some point, it's going to come to a complete grinding halt. And then we're going to see a lot of, you know, horn honking and probably colorful hand gestures that is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish.
And as an organization, a lot of frustration. And so a lot of people trying to check, why is it jamming? Why is it jamming? And then there's a lot of status meeting that installs and everything because everyone wants his car to go through that traffic jam, you know?
Yeah.
And you see the same in organizations.
Yeah, and so much of what we see and teach and observe with teams that are doing, you know, product development, software development, in specifically the area of unplanned work, we see that in the non-software development areas. Again, some of the areas that we've taken an agile approach with, I'm saying just how much unplanned work, how much work constantly gets thrust upon them, and they don't have a mechanism to say, whoa, you know, I've already committed to something for this next 2 weeks. I'll take that into consideration. This is the way we're working. And one of the things that I think moving towards an agile way of working in these non-software development areas also helps with is to be able to have that message, right? That says, look, I'm no longer doing things the way we've traditionally done it. And you've got to respect that we're trying to do this. So it actually provides an opportunity to minimize some of the inefficiency that we know is happening. But we've got a good reason why. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we're one of the areas that's now taking an agile way of working. Right. Provides
Right.
a little bit of coverage sometimes.
Right. All right.
Another question that I've got is on the infrastructure area, and it looks like this is coming up from what I'd mentioned as far as laptop refresh. Guillaume, have you worked with again, an infrastructure area where you've taken an agile way of working that you can kind of cover a little bit of that?
Yes, yes, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, that services team that are servicing either the rest of the organization or the final customers and needs to organize themselves as, you know, what is the initial need and how can we fulfill that need to delight our customer. So this way we can visualize the real flow that we need across the service or product that we are delivering. And I've been with a couple of infrastructure teams that deliver either you know, server environment, you know, all that database also environment that needs to be more on a broader aspect of the enterprise. But yeah, they can easily organize themselves as a team. Often, you know, you see an organization, you are a team because you are under the same boss. But what do we see in that is a bunch of individuals under the same boss. So when you organize as team and really generate that value together, that's where it really unleashes the true power of that team, you know.
And another question from Alan: how do you start to generate interest in an organization in the non-software development areas? And I'll have a quick answer on my part, and then Guillaume, I'd like you to chime in. And what I try to do is, if I'm working with an organization, I'm part of the COE, or if this comes up, and I've got an opportunity in training or some other consulting types activities, is to try and get the mindset for those that are the more senior coaches. So whether you're a team level coach, a product line coach, a line of business coach, a coach from an Agile COE, is to start trying to make inroads into the areas of the organization that can not only be supportive of the software development teams that are moving towards taking an agile way of working, but start laying the groundwork for how beneficial it will be to them. So that's always a missed opportunity when you don't do that, when you have to work with again, an enterprise or a shared services or a supporting services area to start saying, by the way, you can do this too, and here's how it would benefit you. So that's one of the ways that I like to try and drive that that type of behavior and mindset. And Guillaume, anything?
Yeah, mainly is trying to see in one aspect of your organization where you have the highest agile, you know, mindset commitment from executive, you know, from every level. Try to start small while not going into roles definition to the comma, try to start small and get that commitment, and then try to just fail and go forward across that and be goal driven around that and generate that small success in which you can capture a lot of learning and reshare them with the rest of the organization. So it might give interest to other teams to say, hey, you know what, we can do that, and we can maybe try that technique or that practice, and really stop struggling maybe in our status quo situation that we might feel as a team.
Yeah. And I'm going to share we're getting kind of close to the end of our time, so I do want to just share my screen quickly and just put this up because we want to make sure that we've got a takeaway, some awareness. If you would like more information on any of this or anything we've talked about, for the questions that we've answered and any that we haven't got to, we will be writing a blog together, and we'll answer those questions. We'll make sure it gets out on our respective company websites, as well as the Disciplined Agile Consortium. The other thing, Guillaume, that I'm going to put you on the spot about, because it just kind of dawned on me, is so Guillaume and I both deliver the Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master training, and that's, there's 3 foundational courses: Foundations of Agile, Foundations of Lean, Foundation to Disciplined Agile, and then the Choose Your Way of Working. And Guillaume, one of the things I think maybe we ought to do is maybe we can put together an offering of the DALSM courses, but advertise it and market it specifically towards people that want to do something in non-software development. Because a lot of times we'll get more people coming in, again, that are looking for, the work that they do is in the software development area. And that I don't want to say it dominates the discussion, but a lot of times, I mean, that's a big part of the focal point, because that's the majority of people we get into these courses. So maybe we can offer one that's geared specifically to be able to provide examples, scenarios, and have all the opportunity for questions and things that people are bringing forward that are in attendance, specifically on non-software development related. So if that's something that any of you that are in attendance today are interested in, or know somebody that might be, if you can, just drop us a note, and we will actually look at taking an opportunity to schedule something like that. Guillaume, you've got training coming up, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
All right, so we have some workshops that are coming. French given, even if the material is in English, we give training in French, and we do have open spots in July and August and September. Well, if you want to know more, maybe go to pragsix.com, so pragsix.com, and you'll see all the information that you need. And feel free to contact me on email or any other media that you can find, even on LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to help you out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for attendance today. Our next week's webinar, we're going to have Guillaume rejoin us, along with Linda and Paul and Rod, and it's going to be a series that we call Ask Me Anything. So we've got a panel of experts together. We've got a lot of different perspectives and experience that we're able to cover. Come attend next week, and it is all about questions, anything relating to DA, and I would say, come in and try and stump us. Once again, thank you, everybody. Hope to see you next week, as well as in the coming weeks.